1 year ago today, Francis Ngannou took on Tyson Fury in boxing. He lost on the scorecards. Many felt he should have won. His next boxing bout, he lost to Anthony Joshua via KO, but then he returned to MMA earlier this month and won via KO over Renan Ferreira. That pay-per-view show was good for Ngannou, but not for the PFL. It drew an estimated 10,000 pay-per-view buys, significantly lower than expected. The Wrestling Observer sources said it was about 10K buys. So about 10,000 pay-per-view buys, which generated approximately $500,000 in pay-per-view revenue. Renan Ferreira's purse was $2 million. Ngannou was a guaranteed $8 million for this fight and $12 million for his next fight, on top of a $2 million signing bonus. For reference, Ngannou versus Stipe in the UFC, their part one of their fight did 350,000 pay-per-view buys, which would be 35 times the amount of this pay-per-view. Ngannou's move to the PFL has raised serious concern about the promotion's financial viability. Ngannou's drawing power hasn't translated into significant pay-per-view buys. The PFL's investment into Ngannou, which, is like $8 to $12 million per fight, seems unsustainable, especially when compared to the reported low pay-per-view numbers. There's some speculation the PFL may be relying heavily on external funding, potentially from Saudi Arabia, to cover these costs, as their current revenue streams seem insufficient to support such expenses like Ngannou's purses. And even Renan Ferreira has a $2 million purse and they only made $500,000, plus they got to pay all the other fighters, so it just seems unsustainable. Dana White's assessment of his adversaries is sometimes called into question. Well, when it comes to PFL chairman Don Davis, the PFL and their investors, maybe there's some validity to some of the things that he says.
I don't think about Francis that much. You guys asked me the question about the PFL and I responded. Other than that, the only one who's praying for his demise is probably the PFL, because they signed a shitty contract with a guy that doesn't deliver any numbers in ticket sales or pay-per-views. And they got to keep paying this guy for however long. And good for him. And not good for them. I would hate to be one of that guy's investors. I don't watch MMA. I've worked 7 years and haven't taken a vacation. You should probably take a vacation. You're out of your fucking mind, dude. You should probably take a vacation.
Ilia has the better left hook than Alex Pereira, is what Michael Bisping says. Technically better. Alex Pereira's got that God-given power, but the technique with which that was delivered on Max Holloway was perfect. The speed was pretty crazy too. I saw that in slow motion and it was still extremely fast. So he has the speed, precision, power, and timing. But what are your thoughts? Who has the better left hook, Pereira or Topuria? Let me know in the comments. Ilia Topuria's brother, Alexander Topuria, who's 5-1, fights at 135 and is a year older than Ilia, will be making his UFC debut soon. Maybe in December or maybe in January, but soon. After his victory of the weekend, Farid Basharat wants to take on Jose Aldo. If they strike, it could be a fun fight. If he does the push you up against the fence thing that a lot of guys are doing against Aldo, it would be a boring fight. Maybe they should do Aldo versus Cruz, 2 former WEC champs, 2 former UFC champs, 2 Hall of Famers. Gilbert Burns thinks Bo Nickal versus Khamzat Chimaev in 1 to 2 years would be fire. Maybe, but the sport moves fast. In 2 years, they both could be irrelevant. MMA can be brutal. Guys can fall off in 2 months, never mind 2 years. We'll see how Bo Nickal does next week against Paul Craig at UFC 309. He's a big favorite in that one. He can dictate where the fight goes. If he likes what's happening standing, he can keep it there. If he doesn't like what's happening standing, he can take it to the ground. Bo's the biggest prospect at 185, but there isn't a ton of excitement for his fights right now because he's usually a massive favorite. The only way he loses this fight is if he gets complacent on the ground, which would be really dumb against a guy like Craig, who has submission wins over top 205ers like Ankalaev, Hill, and Krylov, who's ranked number 6. He's extremely dangerous, and you gotta be dialed in grappling against him till literally the very last second, as he tapped Ankalaev 4:59 into round 3 in a fight that he would have lost if he didn't get a finish. Craig's dropped down to 185, has had mixed results. He beat Muniz but lost to Allen and Bohayo. After this fight with Craig, assuming he wins, Bo Nickal wants to take on 2 more unranked fighters. Then he plans to take a ranked opponent, followed by another ranked opponent in the top 5, and then his 5th fight would be a title shot. So a lot more slow and methodical approach than when he first burst onto the scene and wanted Khamzat and wanted to rush to a title shot. Bo wants to take on some unranked opponents who are dangerous to gain some experience. He could choose from some middleweights like Gregory Rodriguez, Alaskarov, Joe Pyfer, Abus Magomedov, and Roman Kopylov, assuming Roman Kopylov stays unranked. If he beats Chris Curtis in his next fight, he will be ranked. Guram Kutataladze wants to take on Paddy Pimblett next. He holds a win over Gamrot in the UFC. Paddy, I saw you're waiting for Topuria to come up to lightweight and fight him. That sounds unreal. Let's talk about reality. We have unfinished business. I'm in the lightweight division and eager to fight you. You don't need any more reasons and you don't have to wait. UFC put this guy in the cage with me. Paddy will likely take on a ranked opponent next. He had some interest in fighting Hanato Moicano, who's 3 spots above him at number 11 in the lightweight division. Paddy sits at number 14. Conor agrees with the guy who says he shouldn't come back to fighting and risk his brain health because he already has everything he needs. Conor has effectively been retired since his last fight. He hasn't fought in a few years and is more focused on his business ventures outside of fighting. Charles Jourdain makes his bantamweight debut on Saturday, taking on Victor Henry in Edmonton, Alberta.
It's the first time at 135. I'm about 149 now. Feeling good, just fatigué. Because we do a lot of training with very less calorie intake. Let's go, motherfuckers! It's time to get dirty!
Mike Perry's Dirty Boxing Championship begins on November 23rd. You have 5-ounce gloves. There is ground and pound allowed. There are elbows allowed. There are 3 3-minute rounds, but for the main event and championship fights, there's 3 5-minute rounds, and there is a smaller ring to facilitate more action.
It's going to be boxing with elbows and ground and pound.
Some UFC fighters are on the Fury grappling card on Saturday, like Dennis Bazookia. Herbert Burns was recently cut by the UFC after his loss to Jack Jenkins. He's taking on Pat Sabatini, who's coming off a big win over Jonathan Pierce, a standing rear naked choke victory in the first round. Joe Selecki is also on the card. His last fight was a loss to Grant Dawson via decision. Roses Jr. meets John Jones. He says thanks to him, he's challenged to break the record to be the youngest champion in UFC history. Roses Jr. is 20. John Jones was 23 when he won the title. Raul Rosas Jr. is on a 3-fight win streak, most recently over Ricky Lang.
Oh yeah, well, because in Mexico, Rosas got sick.
I thought you got scared.
No, he got sick, bro.
He actually got sick?
Yeah.
I thought you said he got sick.
No, he got sick.
No, I know they said he got sick, but you were like, man, he was scared.
No, who said that?
You? Yeah, because you said he was warming up.
No, he was warming up, and then we thought he got scared, and then later on we saw that he was sick. And then when I saw him at the Sphere, because we're on the same card,
Yeah.
I actually had a good conversation with him. For him to be 18, 19, and handle all that pressure, that's not easy, man.
Yeah.
I know adults who can't handle that pressure. Caleb Brent, my man. I love hearing the world through his eyes.
You said a UFC fighter, right? What is that fella's name that's been messaging me all week? That O'Malley boy. Like, what are you doing?
No,
wasn't
he
I had like 5 missed calls from him, and I was like, he's had some kind of hip surgery.
I remember when you almost died from a cold. You think that was bad? Long COVID ain't got shit on me.